So Norway's generational striker came into this match riding this massive wave of, 37 team goals in just 8 qualifying games. They were just totally obliterating defenses.
Oh, absolutely tearing them apart.
Right. Yet within like 15 minutes of kickoff against Morocco, the most dangerous man on the pitch is basically reduced to this incredibly frustrated, very expensive spectator.
Yeah, it was wild to
It
watch.
really was. So how do you utterly neutralize a world-class offensive threat without actually man-marking him?
Well, you cut the supply. You're watching a team implement a total masterclass in spatial denial. Morocco they didn't waste their energy fighting the striker directly. They just completely choked out the machinery that feeds him.
Wow. And that's exactly why today we are taking you into the tactical weeds of this truly fascinating clash between Morocco and Norway. Our mission for you, the listener, isn't just a recap of who scored and when. We are unpacking the actual anatomy of momentum.
You see?
We're going to examine how extreme environmental factors force these massive structural shifts, and what happens when a team that's pushed to the absolute brink manages to rewrite their whole strategy mid-game.
It's a great case study.
Okay, let's unpack this. Setting the scene here, Morocco enters this fixture running really hot. They're sitting at number 7 in the live FIFA rankings, so they are a known elite quantity.
Right, highly respected.
Yeah, and Norway, conversely, is sitting all the way down at number 31. On paper, to a casual observer, that looks like a pretty severe mismatch.
Yeah, but see, what's fascinating here is that the FIFA ranking algorithm heavily weights competitive tournament fixtures over a multi-year cycle, right?
Ah, I see. So it's looking backward.
Exactly.
Oh.
Because of that structural lag, a sudden influx of top-tier talent doesn't immediately reflect in a nation's ranking. So that number 31, that is a severe false position.
Gotcha.
Analysts widely consider this Norwegian squad to be a massive potential dark horse for the World Cup. They aren't treating this match as just some casual friendly.
No, definitely not.
This is their dress rehearsal. It's basically their final opportunity to solidify their tactical system before that really crucial group game against Iraq, taking place in Boston on June 16th.
And the system they are trying to solidify is instantly put under, just immense environmental stress. Let's talk about the exact conditions. It is 82 degrees on the pitch with 45% humidity.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal for high-intensity football.
It's like trying to run a marathon in a mildly heated greenhouse. If I'm a manager looking at those conditions, implementing a high-intensity modern pressing game sounds like tactical suicide. So how heavily does this humidity actually dictate the opening rhythm? Like, how do you maintain a relentless strategy without your forwards' legs just turning to leave at the 30th minute?
I know, it sounds super counterintuitive, right? But a highly coordinated press is actually an energy conservation tactic in extreme heat.
Wait, really? Running more saves energy.
Well, think about the biomechanics of playing in 82 degrees. Your recovery time between sprints is severely compromised. So if you drop deep and let Norway control the ball, you are committing your players to making these massive 60 or 70-yard recovery runs every single time you win possession.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be exhausting.
Exactly. So Morocco, they flip the math. By pressing aggressively at the very top of the pitch, the required sprint to the goal is only, 20 yards?
Right. You're already right there.
You suffocate the opponent's build-up play, you force a turnover, and you strike before the lactic acid even has a chance to build up in your attacker's legs.
That is brilliant. Which brings us right to the opening bell. Because Morocco didn't just control the ball, they effectively set up camp inside Norway's half.
They really did.
The off-the-ball movement was just staggering. They constantly found width, particularly through players like Abda, who was acting as this persistent menace on the left side, constantly delivering these probing balls into the box.
Yeah, Abda was electric in those opening minutes.
And this culminates in a textbook exploitation of space for the opening goal. Norway suffers this really sloppy giveaway. I think Julian Ryerson loses possession, and Morocco triggers a rapid transition.
Lightning fast.
They cover half the length of the field in seconds, and it ends with Brahim Diaz scoring his 14th goal for his country. But let's look at the defensive error on that play, specifically David Muller. He didn't just stand off Diaz, he looked physically trapped between two decisions.
Yeah, Mueller was caught totally flat-footed, but it was because of the preceding passing sequence.
What do you mean?
Well, Morocco had been overloading the opposite flank for the previous 5 minutes, forcing the entire Norwegian defensive block to shift horizontally. So when the ball suddenly transitions back over to Diaz, Mueller is caught backpedaling.
Oh, so his momentum is totally working against him.
Exactly. He's trying to reorganize his defensive line while simultaneously trying to close down one of the most lethal attackers on the pitch. That hesitation creates this tiny, like, 2-yard pocket of space. And at the international level, giving Diaz a 2-yard pocket is just a fatal mathematical error.
The danger wasn't just their raw speed, though, was it? It was the synchronized nature of their forwards. They were acting as this high-pressure valve.
Yes, very much so.
They implemented a really specific variation of defending from the front, as Abda and Brahim Diaz were disrupting Norway's rhythm before the center backs could even look up to scan the field.
They turned the Norwegian half into a minefield, essentially. Whenever a Norwegian defender received the ball, the passing lanes were instantly shadowed by a Moroccan forward.
Like a blanket.
Right. It forces these rushed, low-percentage passes. That early Ryerson giveaway you mentioned, that was a direct product of visual overload.
Visual overload.
Yeah. Ryerson looked up, saw 3 passing options erased simultaneously, panicked, and just turned the ball over.
Man, and we saw the offensive upside of that synchronicity later in the half, too. Do you remember that reverse combo between Abda and Diaz?
Oh, that was almost one of the goals of the season.
It was a sequence that completely dismantled the defense structurally. Diaz orchestrates the play. He draws 2 defenders by shifting his hips to fake a shot, and then just threads a perfectly weighted pass into the box for Abda.
Notice how that play manipulated the center of gravity. Diaz's fake shot forced the Norwegian center backs to plant their feet and brace for an impact.
Right, they committed to the block.
Exactly. And the moment they planted their weight, they lost the ability to pivot laterally.
Yeah.
Diaz exploited that microsecond of immobility to slip the ball through to Abda. It is a level of coordination that induces just a deep psychological exhaustion in defense.
And that exhaustion bleeds into the rest of the pitch. Because Morocco's front line was acting like this heavy, suffocating blanket, Norway's superstars were basically stranded on an island.
Totally isolated.
Let's look at Sander Berge, who plays alongside Martin Ødegaard. Berge is essentially the conductor of the orchestra, right? Or like the transmission of the Norwegian car. He takes the raw energy from the defense, gears it up, and transfers it to the attackers. Morocco didn't even bother attacking the engine, Norway's generational striker. They just cut the transmission.
That's a perfect analogy. Azzedine Ounahi and the Moroccan midfield executed this brilliant squeezing maneuver.
How did they pull that off without just gassing themselves out?
Well, instead of tracking Berge man-to-man, which, as we said, is exhausting in that humidity,
Yeah.
they pinched the space around him. They created this geographic triangle that Berge just couldn't escape.
Oh, I love that.
Every time the Norwegian defense tried to find Berge, the pass had to thread through 2 Moroccan bodies. The supply lines were entirely severed.
It's fascinating. But let me ask you this. If you have a giant world-class striker up front, but your midfield is being overrun by guys like Ounahi, does the striker just become a very expensive spectator?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, top-tier teams rely completely on their supply lines. When you cut that supply, human nature kicks in. Frustration takes over.
Yeah, we saw Haaland dropping incredibly deep into the midfield, sometimes all the way back to the center circle, just to get a single touch on the ball.
Exactly. But by dropping deep, he's actively helping Morocco condense the pitch. He is pulling his own team's center of gravity backward.
Oh, wow. So he's actually hurting his own team's shape.
He essentially did Morocco's defensive work for them. Think about it. A striker of his profile is designed to pin the opposing center backs deep against their own penalty area, right? That stretches the field and creates space for midfielders like Ødegaard to operate.
Right.
When he abandons that high line out of sheer frustration, the Moroccan center backs are suddenly free to step up 10 yards. They compress the midfield even further, tightening that chokehold on Berge and Ødegaard. It becomes this vicious, self-perpetuating cycle of frustration.
You could literally see the psychological strain bubbling over. Norway managed a few disjointed chances. There was a header that drifted wide and a desperate shot from distance that was just easily clutched by Morocco's goalkeeper Bono, who, by the way, plays his club football over in Saudi Arabia with Al Hilal.
Right. Very experienced keeper.
But structurally, there was zero real threat in that first half. Norway was drowning in a tactical system they just couldn't untangle.
Yeah. The heat ultimately forced a natural break in the action. Both teams used the mandatory cooling pause to recalibrate, and this is where the architecture of the match completely fractures.
Let's get into the second half then. Morocco makes a few changes to preserve fresh legs. They bring on Raheem for Ez Abda, who obviously had an incredibly taxing first half, and they introduce Amrabat for some midfield stability.
Solid conservative changes.
Right. But Norway, however, makes a substitution that completely changes the geometry of their attack. They introduce Oscar Bobb. And Bobb didn't just run faster than the man he replaced, he fundamentally altered the whole spatial puzzle.
He absolutely weaponized the half spaces.
Okay, for the listeners who might not be tactical nerds, what exactly is the half space?
So the half space is the vertical corridor that sits right between the wing and the center of the pitch. It is notoriously difficult to defend because it creates a jurisdictional dispute between a team's fullback and their center back.
Ah, like a gray area. Is he yours or mine?
Exactly. By drifting into these seams and receiving the ball on the half turn, Bob forces the Moroccan defenders to make split-second decisions about who steps out of line to mark him.
And that creates a massive chain reaction. The moment a Moroccan center back steps out of the defensive line to address Bob in the half space, a vacuum just opens up inside the penalty box.
Yes, exactly.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that exact mechanism is what generated the equalizing goal. Bob bypasses the initial press, he drifts into the seam, draws the defender, and just delivers a pristine ball.
Such a great pass.
He finds Martin Odegaard completely alone, totally unmarked in the Moroccan box to finish the chance brilliantly. How does a team that looked so dominant just collapse like that?
Well, this raises an important question about concentration. Morocco spent 45 minutes perfectly calibrating their defensive shape to handle a specific type of threat. They had memorized the timing of Sander Berge's runs. They understood the physical positioning required to isolate Haaland.
They figured out the puzzle.
They had completely solved the first half's equation. But when Oscar Bobb stepped onto the pitch, the variables changed. Bobb demanded a completely different marking scheme, and in the crucial milliseconds it took for the Moroccan defense to calculate their new assignments, they just went to sleep. The system broke down.
The pendulum swing of momentum after that was violent. Immediately following that equalizer, Norway almost goes up 2-1. A shot from Odegaard takes a massive deflection, totally wrong-footing Bono, and suddenly it's Morocco scrambling for survival.
Oh, the panic was real.
The body language on the pitch completely flipped. The Norwegian frustration just evaporated, replaced by this intense, hungry belief. They actually started to believe in themselves again.
And the statistics from the second half paint a very clear picture of that psychological shift. Norway forced double-digit corner kicks.
Double digits.
Yeah, 10, 11, 12 corners just rained down on the Moroccan penalty area. The geographic control we discussed earlier reversed entirely.
Norway was suddenly pinning Morocco deep inside their own third, relentlessly pressuring Bono. Every time Morocco managed a desperate clearance, a Norwegian midfielder was positioned perfectly to win the second ball, recycle the possession, and just send another giant into the box.
It was relentless.
Morocco, the team that had executed a flawless high press for 45 minutes, was reduced to holding on for dear life until the referee finally blew the whistle. The relief on the Moroccan bench was just palpable.
It really serves as a stark reminder of how rapidly structural integrity can fail at the elite level. Dominance is never a permanent state. It is a fragile ecosystem that requires constant maintenance.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from the pitch, from the humidity and the overlapping runs, what is the core lesson here for you, the listener? Because this match provides a flawless case study in the dynamics of momentum and adaptation.
It really does.
If you are in Morocco's position, experiencing early dominance, you have to recognize that your opponent will inevitably alter their variables. You cannot solve a puzzle once and expect to coast on that solution for the rest of the engagement.
Yeah, and I think the broader takeaway is the inherent danger of over-calibration. Morocco played a nearly perfect first half because they optimized their entire defensive structure to neutralize a single generational threat.
Right, they put all their eggs in the stop the big guy basket.
Exactly. But in complex systems, whether that's international football or your own professional projects, optimizing too heavily for one specific scenario leaves you mathematically vulnerable to a chaotic variable. Perfect defense is incredibly brittle. It shatters the moment it encounters an element it wasn't designed to process, like Oscar Bobb operating in those half spaces.
That framing completely changes how we view our own roadblocks. When you are stuck in a failing strategy, feeling like that isolated striker getting frustrated and exhausted, the instinct is usually to just push harder, to run faster.
Just muscle through it.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes effort isn't the missing ingredient. You just need to change the geometry of your approach. Look at the variables you haven't introduced yet.
And, We often think momentum is this unstoppable magical force. But as we saw with Morocco's sudden defensive lapse and Norway's resurgence, momentum is actually incredibly fragile.
So fragile.
So my final thought for you to mull over is this. If a single tactical substitution can entirely neutralize a superior opponent's momentum, how often do you persist with a failing strategy in your own life simply because you haven't stepped back to look at who or what is available on your bench?
Ooh, that is a great question to leave off on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep analyzing the structures around you, keep looking for those new variables, and we'll catch you next time.